The Crithian fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. 500 massive warships appeared in space near Neptune. Their sensors scanned everything in the system. They found the human colonies on Mars. They found the orbital stations around Earth. They found what looked like primitive satellites scattered throughout the asteroid belt. Commander, Vexthor studied the readings with satisfaction. Everything was exactly as his scouts had reported. The humans had some technology, but nothing that could threaten his fleet. This would be easier than he thought. Open a transmission channel to Earth, Vexthor ordered. Let us hear them beg. The transmission was sent on all frequencies. Every human radio, television, and computer received the same message. Vexthor's image appeared on screens across the planet. His 3 eyes stared out at billions of humans. His voice was cold and harsh. People of Earth, I am Commander Vexthor of the Crithian Empire. We have come to claim your world. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Disable all weapons. Ground all ships. Prepare to accept our rule. If you refuse, we will destroy your planet and everyone on it. This is your only warning. The transmission ended. For a moment, the entire planet was silent. Then the command centers burst into activity. Calls came in from every nation. People wanted to know what to do. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to surrender. Everyone was afraid. President Helen Price sat in the Situation Room with her top advisors. Major Kyle Bennett was there on a video screen. Captain Jake Morrison called in from Liberty Station. Military leaders from every nation joined the call. We need to respond, Helen said. What do we tell them? An advisor, a man named George Parker, spoke up. We should negotiate. Maybe we can buy time. Maybe we can make a deal. Kyle shook his head. No deals. I've studied every first contact scenario we could find in our history. Species that surrender immediately become slaves or get wiped out anyway. We fight or we die. Those are our only real options. Then we fight, Helen said simply. Jake, send our response. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on Liberty Station. He activated the transmission system. He knew his words would be heard by everyone on Earth and by the alien fleet. He chose them carefully. Commander Vexthor, this is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth's Defense Forces. We have received your message. Here is our answer. We don't surrender. We don't kneel. We don't beg. If you want Earth, come and take it. We'll be waiting. On the bridge of the Conqueror's Pride, Vexthor heard the human's response. For a moment, he was surprised. Then he started to laugh. His officers joined in. The idea that these primitives would dare to resist was amusing. Very well, Vexthor said. If they want to die as warriors, we will grant them that honor. All ships advance to Earth at combat speed. Weapons ready. Shields up. Let us show them the price of defiance. The Crithian fleet began to move. 500 warships headed toward the inner solar system. They passed Neptune without incident. They passed Uranus. They approached Saturn. Everything seemed quiet. Then the asteroids started shooting. Thousands of objects that the Crithians had thought were simple rocks suddenly came alive. Hidden engines activated. Weapons that had been silent for years started firing. Railguns launched projectiles at incredible speeds. Missiles erupted from concealed bays. Energy weapons blazed across the darkness of space. The Crithian shields held against the first barrage. But the attacks kept coming. The asteroids were actually defense satellites disguised and hidden in the asteroid belt. They had been waiting there for years, dark and silent, impossible to detect until they attacked. On the Conqueror's Pride, alarms screamed. Sub-Commander Zixra worked frantically at her console. Shields holding but taking damage. Multiple impacts across the fleet. We're losing ships. Vexthor watched in shock as 3 of his warships exploded. The primitive weapons had somehow punched through their shields. It shouldn't be possible, but it was happening. How did they hide these weapons? Vexthor roared. Why didn't our sensors detect them? They use no active power, Commander, Zixra reported. They were completely passive until they fired. Our scans read them as ordinary asteroids. In the command center on Earth, Lieutenant Amy Rogers watched the battle with fierce satisfaction. First wave successful, sir. We've destroyed 37 enemy ships. Major Kyle Bennett nodded. Good, but that won't stop them. Launch second wave. Let's see how they handle a moving target. Hundreds of small ships, barely larger than fighters, suddenly appeared from behind asteroids and moons. They were fast and agile. Each one carried enough explosives to damage a Crithian warship. They were essentially suicide drones, controlled by artificial intelligence. The drones swarmed the Crithian fleet like angry insects. They dodged between the larger ships, too small and fast for the heavy weapons to track. They rammed into ships, exploding against shields and hulls. More Crithian vessels took damage. Some lost their shields. A few lost their engines. Vexthor was no longer laughing. His fleet was being hurt by primitives. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. But his ships were dying. All vessels maintain formation, Vexthor commanded. Focus defensive fire on the small craft. Heavy cruisers target the hidden weapons platforms. Destroy everything that fires at us. The Crithians began to fight back more effectively. Their shields adapted to the human weapons. Their targeting systems locked onto the drones. They started destroying the hidden satellites. The battle became more even, but the humans kept fighting. Every time the Crithians destroyed one weapon, two more seemed to appear. Mines floated in the darkness, exploding when Crithian ships got too close. Lasers fired from the moons of Jupiter. Everything in the solar system seemed to be trying to kill them. Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the defense from Liberty Station. He had hundreds of officers helping him, each one managing different weapon systems. Keep them off balance, he ordered. Don't let them get comfortable. Hit them from every direction. The Crithian fleet pushed forward. They were taking losses, but they were still strong. They passed Jupiter. They passed Mars. Earth's moon came into view. On Earth, people watched the battle through telescopes and cameras. They saw their weapons fighting the alien fleet. They saw Crithian ships exploding. They saw human drones sacrificing themselves. Fear mixed with pride. They were losing, but they were making the aliens pay for every mile. Vexthor looked at his tactical display. He had started with 500 ships. Now he had 412. The humans had cost him nearly 100 vessels, and he hadn't even reached their planet yet. Commander, we're approaching Earth's moon, Zixra reported. Sensors are detecting massive power sources on the surface and inside the lunar crust. Vexthor stared at the moon on his viewing screen. He suddenly understood. The humans had turned their moon into a fortress. They had filled it with weapons. The worst fighting was still ahead. All ships prepare for maximum combat, Vexthor ordered. Whatever they have waiting for us, we go through it. We cannot turn back now. We must win or die trying. In the command center on Earth, Major Kyle Bennett watched the Crithian fleet approach the moon. This is it, he said quietly to Amy. If the lunar defenses don't stop them, they'll reach Earth. Everything depends on the next hour. Amy nodded. She activated the communication system. All lunar batteries, this is Earth Command. You are cleared to engage. Fire at will. Hold nothing back. On the moon, thousands of humans sat at control stations inside protected bunkers. They had trained for years for this moment. They powered up weapons that could split mountains. They aimed at the approaching alien fleet. The Crithian ships came closer, closer. They entered range, and then the moon opened fire. The Crithian Empire had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. Their warriors were the strongest in the galaxy. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Their ships were faster than anything else in space. No one had ever defeated them in battle. No one had even tried in the last 1,000 years. Commander Vexthor stood in the Great Hall of the War Council on Krythus Prime. His red scales shined under the bright lights. His three eyes looked at the hologram floating in the center of the room. It showed a small blue planet far away in a quiet corner of the galaxy. This is Earth, Vexthor said to the council members. The species living there calls themselves humans. They are weak. They are primitive, but they are spreading too fast. The eldest council member, a female named Carlin, leaned forward. Her scales were dark with age. How primitive are they? She asked. 200 years ago, they barely had machines that could fly, Vexthor explained. Now they have colonies on 3 planets in their system. They have built weapons in space. They are learning too quickly. Another council member laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. They are children playing with fire. We could crush them with one ship. Vexthor clicked his mandibles. Perhaps, but I recommend we send a proper fleet. We should show them the true power of the Empire. We should make an example of them so other young species will know their place. The council talked among themselves. Some thought it was wasteful to send so many ships against primitives. Others agreed with Vexthor. Finally, Carlin raised her hand for silence. We will send the first fleet, she announced. 20,000 warriors. 500 warships. You will command them, Vexthor. Go to this Earth. Make them surrender or destroy them. Show the galaxy that the Crithian Empire is still the strongest power in existence. Vexthor bowed low. It will be done, High Council. The humans will kneel or they will die. The fleet gathered at the edge of Crithian space. 500 massive warships, each one larger than a human city. Inside them, 20,000 Crithian warriors prepared their weapons and armor. They sang war songs that had been sung for thousands of years. They were confident. They were proud. They had never known defeat. Vexthor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror's Pride. It was the largest ship in the fleet. Its weapons could crack a moon in half. Its shields could withstand the explosion of a star. He looked out at his fleet and felt satisfaction deep in his chest. Set course for Earth, he commanded. Maximum speed. The humans will see us coming and they will despair. Far away on the blue planet called Earth, Major Kyle Bennett sat in a command center buried deep under the mountains. He was looking at screens that showed him what was happening in space. He had been watching the sensors for weeks, waiting for something he hoped would never come. Lieutenant Amy Rogers ran into the room. She was young and smart. She had been one of the first to spot the strange readings in deep space. "Sir, we have confirmation," Amy said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Multiple massive objects detected beyond Neptune. They're moving toward us. The computer estimates 500 ships, maybe more." Kyle felt his stomach drop. For 10 years, humanity had been preparing for this moment. They had built weapons. They had made plans. They had hoped it would never happen. But deep down, everyone knew it would. "Get the president on the line," Kyle said quietly, "and activate all defense protocols. This is not a drill." Within an hour, every military base on Earth knew what was coming. Soldiers rushed to their posts. Ships in orbit powered up their weapons. Hidden satellites in the asteroid belt came alive after years of silence. On the moon, massive guns that had been disguised as mining equipment began to move into position. The president of the United Earth Council appeared on Kyle's screen. She was a woman named Helen Price. She looked tired but determined. "How long do we have, Major?" she asked. "At their current speed, they'll reach Earth in 72 hours, Kyle replied. "We're tracking them carefully. They're not trying to hide. They want us to see them coming." Helen nodded slowly. "Then they want to scare us. They think we'll surrender without a fight." "Will we?" Amy asked quietly from her station. Helen looked at her, then at Kyle, then at all the other officers in the command center. "No," she said firmly. "We've come too far as a species to bow to anyone. If they want Earth, they'll have to take it from us, and we'll make sure they pay a price they never forget." The transmission ended. Kyle turned to Amy and the other officers. "You heard the president. Start sending the signal to all defense stations. Activate everything. I want every weapon we have ready to fire." Captain Jake Morrison received the message on Liberty Station, a large platform orbiting Earth. He had been in space for 5 years, training for this exact situation. He gathered his crew around him. "We all knew this day might come," Jake said to them. "We've trained for it. We've prepared for it. Now it's here. We're going to show these aliens what humans can do when we're pushed into a corner. We're going to fight like hell." His crew nodded. They were scared. Jake could see it in their eyes. But they were also determined. That was the thing about humans. When they were most afraid, that was when they became most dangerous. In deep space, the Crithian fleet continued its journey toward Earth. Vexthor was already writing his victory speech in his mind. He would stand on the surface of Earth and declare it property of the Empire. The humans would watch in chains. It would be glorious. But Vexthor had made one critical mistake. He had assumed that being more advanced meant being superior. He had assumed that having better technology meant automatic victory. He had assumed that the humans would be like every other primitive species the Crithians had conquered. He had never stopped to ask himself one important question. What if the humans were different? What if they had spent their entire existence fighting? What if war was written into their very nature? What if they would rather die than surrender? These questions never entered his mind. They should have. The fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. In 3 days, they would arrive at Earth. In 3 days, Commander Vexthor would learn the answer to questions he never thought to ask. In 3 days, the Crithian Empire would face something it had not faced in 1,000 years. Defeat. The space between Earth and its moon had become a graveyard. Hundreds of wrecked ships drifted in the darkness. Some were Crithian warships, their mighty hulls cracked open. Some were human vessels that had given everything in the fight. The debris field stretched for thousands of miles. Colonel Lisa Grant's fleet pressed their attack. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish hunting a larger predator. They had trained for years to fight together. Now that training was paying off, the UNSS Defiance, still damaged from destroying the planet Cracker, fired its remaining weapons at a Crithian cruiser. The shots hit the cruiser's engine section. Explosions rippled along its hull. The ship began to drift powerless. "Target destroyed," reported Lieutenant Sarah Mills from the weapons station. "Moving to next target." But Lisa was watching her tactical display with concern. "We're hurting them, but they're adapting. They're learning our patterns." She was right. Commander Vexthor, despite his losses, was still a skilled commander. He had been watching the human ships carefully. They were fast and coordinated, but they had weaknesses. Their shields were weaker than Crithian shields. Their armor was thinner. If he could land a solid hit, he could destroy them easily. "All ships, focus fire," Vexthor ordered. "Stop trying to hit all the human vessels. Choose one target at a time and destroy it completely before moving to the next." The Crithian fleet began to change its tactics. Instead of spreading their fire across multiple targets, they concentrated on single human ships. The first victim was the UNSS Guardian, a fast attack ship that had destroyed 3 Crithian vessels. 5 Crithian cruisers fired at the Guardian simultaneously. The human ship's shields collapsed instantly. The hull came apart like paper. 80 crew members died in seconds. "Guardian is down," someone shouted on the fleet channel. Lisa gritted her teeth. The Crithians were learning too fast. All ships pattern echo. "Don't stay still for more than 3 seconds. Keep moving. Keep them guessing." On Earth, Major Kyle Bennett and Lieutenant Amy Rogers coordinated the ground-based weapons. The lunar batteries continued to fire, but the Crithians had started to destroy them one by one. Earth's orbital platforms added their fire to the battle, but they too were taking heavy damage. "We're losing platforms faster than we can replace them," Amy reported, "and the lunar weapons are down to 60% effectiveness." Kyle watched the battle on his screens. The human fleet was fighting brilliantly, but they were outnumbered. The Crithians still had over 300 ships. Humanity had started with 30 ships and had already lost 5. "Contact Captain Morrison," Kyle ordered. "We need him to coordinate with Colonel Grant. If they can't work together perfectly, we'll lose." Captain Jake Morrison sat on Liberty Station, managing the orbital defenses while watching the fleet battle. His station had taken damage from Crithian fire. 3 sections were venting atmosphere. 40 crew members were dead, but Liberty Station was still fighting. "Colonel Grant, this is Morrison," Jake said over the channel. "I'm sending you real-time tactical data from Earth sensors. We can see things you can't from your position. Use it." Lisa's tactical officer, a man named Frank Cooper, received the data. "Colonel, Earth Command is feeding us enemy positions and weaknesses. This is incredible. They can see the entire battlefield." Lisa smiled despite the desperate situation. "Then let's use it. All ships follow Earth Command's targeting priorities. Frank, feed the data to all vessels." The human fleet suddenly became even more coordinated. They knew exactly where every Crithian ship was. They knew which ships were damaged and which were at full strength. They could anticipate Crithian movements before they happened. The tide of battle began to shift again. Commander Vexthor watched as his ships continued to die. The humans seemed to know his every move. They dodged his attacks before he even launched them. They hit his weakest ships with perfect accuracy. It was as if they could read his mind. "How are they doing this?" Vexthor demanded. "How do they know where to strike?" Sub-Commander Zixra had figured it out. "They have sensors on their planet and moon, Commander. They're feeding information to their fleet. The human ships are all connected, sharing data instantly. They fight as one mind with many bodies." Vexthor understood now. The humans weren't just coordinated. They were linked together in a way the Crithian fleet wasn't. Every human ship knew what every other ship was doing. Every human weapon was aimed by computers that shared information at the speed of light. The Crithians had better individual ships, better weapons, better armor, but the humans fought better as a group, and in space combat, coordination mattered more than individual strength. "We need to retreat," Zixra said quietly. "We've lost too many ships. If we stay, the entire fleet will be destroyed." Vexthor wanted to refuse. The Empire did not retreat. He did not retreat, but he looked at his tactical display and saw the truth. He had started with 500 ships. Now he had 207. In just hours of fighting, the humans had destroyed more than half his fleet. It was the greatest defeat in Crithian history. All ships, fall back to the outer system, Vex-Thor ordered, his voice heavy with shame. We will regroup at Rally Point Gamma and reassess our strategy. But Captain Jake Morrison had anticipated this. Colonel Grant, they're trying to run. Don't let them, Lisa checked her display. The Crithians were turning away, preparing to jump to faster than light speed. Once they jumped, they would escape. They would return to their empire with news of Earth's defenses. They would come back with a bigger fleet. All ships, pursuit course, Lisa ordered. Frank, activate the inhibitor satellites. Frank Cooper's fingers flew across his controls. Activating now. Hidden throughout the battle space were hundreds of small satellites. They had been deployed quietly during the fighting, disguised as debris. Now they activated all at once. Each one generated a field that disrupted faster-than-light travel. Together they created a bubble of space where no ship could jump away. On the Conqueror's Pride, alarm screamed. The jump drive tried to engage but failed. Tried again. Failed again. Commander, we can't jump. Zixra reported in panic. Something is blocking our drives. Vex-Thor stared at his screen in horror. The humans had trapped them. They couldn't escape. They couldn't run. They could only fight or surrender, and the Crithian Empire did not surrender. All ships turn and fight, Vex-Thor commanded. If we die here, we die as warriors. We will take as many humans with us as we can. The remaining Crithian fleet turned back toward Earth, 200 ships damaged and desperate, making their final stand. They fired everything they had, missiles, energy beams, railgun rounds. They fought with the fury of cornered animals. The human fleet met them head-on. Colonel Lisa Grant led the charge in the Defiance. All ships, maximum effort. This ends now! The final battle was brutal. Ships on both sides exploded. The lunar weapons fired until their barrels melted. Earth's orbital platforms launched their last missiles. Human fighters flew between the capital ships, targeting weak points with suicidal courage. Lieutenant Amy Rogers watched from Earth as the UNSS Liberty, a small destroyer, rammed directly into a Crithian battleship. Both ships exploded in a fireball bright enough to hurt the eyes. Liberty is gone, Amy reported, her voice cracking. All hands lost. Major Kyle Bennett gripped his chair. How many ships do we have left?
18 combat-capable vessels.
Another 7 are damaged but still fighting. Kyle looked at the Crithian count. And them? 143 ships. Still fighting. The numbers were bad, but the Crithian ships were damaged, disorganized, and demoralized. The human ships were tired but determined. They had their planet behind them. They had everything to lose. Captain Jake Morrison made a decision. All remaining orbital platforms, overload your reactors. Set them for collision course with Crithian clusters. Crews evacuate immediately. It was a desperate move. The platforms had been humanity's first line of defense. Now they would be weapons. 30 platforms, each one as large as a city block, accelerated toward the Crithian fleet. Their reactors pushed past safety limits, ready to explode. The Crithians tried to shoot them down, but the platforms were heavily armored. Most of them reached their targets. They slammed into Crithian warships and detonated. Each explosion took out multiple enemy vessels. When the light faded, the Crithian fleet had 50 ships left. Commander Vex-Thor sat in his command chair, staring at the carnage. His mighty fleet was destroyed. His warriors were dead. His mission was a failure. And it was all because of humans. Primitive, backward humans who should have been easy to conquer. He had one choice left. One final option. All remaining ships ram the human vessels, Vex-Thor ordered quietly. We cannot win, but we can hurt them. We can make them remember us. The last 50 Crithian ships accelerated toward the human fleet. They had given up trying to survive. Now they only wanted to inflict as much damage as possible before they died. Colonel Lisa Grant saw them coming. Evasive maneuvers! Don't let them close. But some of the Crithian ships made it through. They crashed into human vessels in final acts of desperation. The UNSS Courage, the UNSS Pride, the UNSS Freedom. One by one, human ships died. When it was over, only 8 human ships remained operational, and the Crithian fleet was completely destroyed. The surface of the moon erupted with light. Hundreds of massive weapons fired at once. Energy beams, each one powerful enough to melt steel. lanced across space toward the Crithian fleet. Railguns launched projectiles the size of cars at speeds that made them impossible to dodge. Missile batteries released thousands of warheads. Commander Vexthor watched in horror as his shields began to fail. The weapons were primitive compared to Crithian technology, but there were so many of them. It was like being hit by a tidal wave. 1 or 2 attacks his ships could handle, but hundreds at the same time was overwhelming. Evasive maneuvers, Vexthor screamed. Scatter the fleet! Return fire! But it was too late for dozens of ships. The first barrage caught them before they could react. Their shields overloaded, their hulls cracked. Explosions blossomed across the fleet as ship after ship died. The Crithian formation broke apart as captains tried desperately to save their vessels. On Liberty Station, Captain Jake Morrison watched the chaos with grim satisfaction. Now, all orbital platforms, add your fire. Don't give them time to recover. Earth had built dozens of weapons platforms in orbit. They had hidden them among satellites and space stations. Now they revealed themselves. More weapons joined the assault from the moon. The Crithians were caught in a crossfire. Sub-Commander Zixra worked frantically at her station. We've lost 80 ships in the first 2 minutes. Shields across the fleet are failing. We need to retreat. Vexthor's pride warred with his tactical sense. He had never retreated from battle. The Empire had never retreated from primitives. But he was losing. If he stayed, his entire fleet would be destroyed. All ships fall back to the outer orbit of the moon, Vexthor ordered. Regroup and prepare for coordinated assault. We need to destroy those lunar weapons before we can advance. The surviving Crithian ships pulled back. They had lost over 150 vessels now. More than a quarter of the fleet was gone. The humans had hurt them badly. In the command center on Earth, Lieutenant Amy Rogers reported the situation. Enemy fleet is regrouping, sir. They're out of range of most lunar weapons. What's their next move? Major Kyle Bennett studied the tactical display. They'll try to destroy the moon bases from a distance. They can't advance while those weapons are active. We bought ourselves some time. President Helen Price joined the channel. How much time, Major? Hours, maybe. Once they figure out where all the weapons are hidden, they'll target them systematically. The moon can't hold them forever. Then we use those hours well, Helen said firmly. Captain Morrison, is the fleet ready? Jake Morrison smiled grimly. Ready and waiting, Madam President. Just give the word. On the Conqueror's Pride, Vexthor was analyzing the moon's defenses. His tactical officer had identified over 300 separate weapon installations. They were spread across the entire lunar surface and buried deep inside the moon's crust. It will take time to destroy them all, Zixra reported, and they'll keep firing at us while we do it. Vexthor considered his options. He could bombard the moon from a distance, but that would take days. He could try to rush through the defensive fire, but he would lose more ships. Or he could use the planet crackers. The planet crackers were weapons the Empire used only when they wanted to make an example of a world. They were massive missiles with antimatter warheads. 3 of them could destroy a planet by cracking it open from the inside. The Empire had forbidden their use except in the most extreme situations. Prepare 3 planet crackers, Vexthor ordered. Target Earth directly. We'll end this quickly. Zixra looked at him in shock. Commander, the Council ordered us to conquer Earth, not destroy it. If we crack the planet, there will be nothing left to claim. The Council also expected an easy victory, Vexthor snarled. These humans have cost us too much. If we cannot have their world, we will ensure no one can. Prepare the weapons. The 3 planet cracker missiles were loaded into launch tubes. Each one was the size of a small ship. They would fly toward Earth at maximum speed. When they reached the planet, they would burrow through the crust and detonate at the core. Nothing could survive that. Launch planet crackers, Vexthor commanded. The 3 missiles shot toward Earth. They were fast and heavily armored. The lunar weapons fired at them, but the missiles kept coming. 1 was destroyed. 2 kept flying. In Earth's command center, alarms went off. Amy Rogers stared at her screen in horror. Sir, we're detecting antimatter signatures. They launched planet killers. Kyle Bennett felt ice in his veins. How many? 3 launched. We destroyed 1. 2 are still incoming. Impact in 4 minutes, Kyle grabbed his communicator. Jake, those missiles must not reach Earth. Stop them at any cost. Captain Jake Morrison was already moving. All ships emergency launch. Intercept those missiles now. Hidden on the far side of the moon, humanity's secret fleet had been waiting. 30 ships built in secret over 10 years. They weren't as large as Crithian vessels, but they were fast and armed with the best weapons humanity could build. The ships launched from concealed hangars. They accelerated at speeds that would have killed any Crithian crew. Humans could handle more force because they had built their ships specifically for their own biology. Colonel Lisa Grant commanded the fleet from the bridge of the UNSS Defiance. She saw the 2 planet crackers on her screen. 4 minutes to impact. Her ship was the fastest, but even she couldn't reach them in time to shoot them down safely. There was only one option. Commander Greg Patterson, do you copy? Lisa asked. On the UNSS Valiant, Commander Greg Patterson looked at his crew. They were young, most of them in their 20s. They had families waiting for them on Earth. He knew what Lisa was about to ask. I copy, Colonel, Greg replied steadily. Greg, I need you to intercept the second missile. You're the only ship fast enough. There was silence on the channel. Everyone knew what that meant. Greg's ship couldn't just shoot the missile. It was too fast, too heavily armored. The only way to stop it was to ram it. To sacrifice the ship and everyone on board, Greg looked at his crew again. His navigator, a woman named Sophie Blake, nodded at him. His weapons officer, a man named Danny Price, gave him a thumbs up. His engineer, Carlos Ruiz, smiled sadly. They all understood. They all agreed. Copy that, Colonel, Greg said. Valiant is moving to intercept. It's been an honor serving with you all. Lisa felt tears in her eyes, but her voice was steady. The honor was ours, Greg. Humanity will remember you. The Valiant shot forward at maximum acceleration. The Planet Cracker missile was 3 minutes from Earth. 2 minutes. The Valiant closed in. Greg's hands were steady on the controls. He thought about his wife, his daughter. He hoped they would understand. For Earth, Greg whispered. The Valiant struck the Planet Cracker at full speed. Both exploded in a flash of light bright enough to be seen from Earth's surface. The antimatter warhead detonated in space instead of inside the planet. The explosion was massive, but Earth survived. 1 missile left. Colonel Lisa Grant's ship, the Defiance, chased the first Planet Cracker. She was close enough to fire weapons. Her entire ship fired everything they had, missiles, railguns, energy weapons, everything. The Planet Cracker's armor held 30 seconds to impact. All ships concentrate fire on that missile, Lisa ordered. Every human ship in range fired at once. The Planet Cracker's armor began to crack. 20 seconds. Lisa pushed her engines past their safety limits. Alarm screamed. Her ship was tearing itself apart from the acceleration, but she got close enough. 10 seconds. Fire everything, Lisa screamed. The Defiance's main railgun, built into the entire length of the ship, fired 1 massive slug. It hit the Planet Cracker dead center just as the missile began its final descent toward Earth's atmosphere. The missile exploded. The blast caught the Defiance and threw it spinning through space, but the ship held together. The Planet Cracker was destroyed. Earth was safe. Commander Vexthor watched in disbelief as his Planet Crackers were destroyed. First one, then the other, and now he saw the human fleet. Where had they come from? How had they hidden so many ships? All vessels, engage the human fleet, Vexthor ordered. Destroy them all. But the Crithian fleet was in disarray. They were scattered from dodging the lunar weapons. They were damaged from the earlier fighting, and now they faced a human fleet that flew with coordination and skill that shocked them. Colonel Lisa Grant, her ship damaged but still fighting, led the assault. All ships, attack pattern Delta, hit their engines and weapons. Make them helpless. The human ships were smaller and faster. They darted between the Crithian vessels like sharks. They targeted specific systems with precise fire. They worked together perfectly, each ship supporting the others. Vexthor realized with growing horror that he was beaten. His fleet was dying. His warriors were falling. These primitives, these humans, were defeating the finest fleet in the Crithian Empire. It was impossible, but it was happening. The silence after the battle was almost worse than the fighting. Space around Earth was filled with wreckage and bodies. Human and Crithian dead floated together in the darkness. Ships that had been mighty warships were now just twisted metal and broken dreams. Colonel Lisa Grant sat on the bridge of the Defiance. Her ship had survived, but barely. Half her crew was dead. Her engines were failing. Her weapons were destroyed. But she was alive. Earth was alive. Status report, Lisa said quietly. Lieutenant Sarah Mills, her face covered in soot and blood, checked her console. 8 ships still operational. Another 12 are damaged but might be salvageable. We lost 19 vessels completely. Lisa closed her eyes. 19 ships. Thousands of people. Men and women who had families waiting for them on Earth. People who would never go home. And the enemy? Total destruction, Colonel. Every Crithian ship is either destroyed or disabled. We're detecting some life signs on a few vessels, but they're fading fast. Lisa nodded slowly. They had won. Humanity had defeated the Crithian Empire's first fleet. But the cost had been terrible. She opened a channel to Earth. Major Kyle Bennett appeared on her screen. He looked as tired as she felt. Behind him, Lieutenant Amy Rogers was crying quietly while still working at her station. "Colonel Grant," Kyle said. "Well done. You saved Earth." "We all saved Earth, Major," Lisa replied. "How bad is the damage down there?" Kyle checked his reports. 30 orbital platforms destroyed. 60% of lunar weapons offline. 3 colonies on Mars lost contact, probably destroyed by stray fire. And we lost Liberty Station an hour ago. Captain Morrison stayed on board to the end, managing the defenses until a Crithian missile got through. Lisa felt a pain in her chest. Jake Morrison had been a good man, a good captain. How many dead total? We're still counting. At least 8,000 in space, maybe another 2,000 on the ground and in the colonies. And that's not counting the injured. 10,000 dead. It was the bloodiest day in human history. But it could have been so much worse. If they had lost, everyone would be dead. Every human. Every child. Every hope for the future. What do we do now? Lisa asked. Kyle looked off screen at something. President Helen Price moved into view. She looked older than she had that morning. The battle had aged everyone who witnessed it. Now we send a message, Helen said. Not just to the Crithians, but to everyone out there. We need to make sure this never happens again. 3 months passed. Humanity worked frantically to repair their defenses and count their losses. They searched the Crithian wreckage for survivors but found almost none. Commander Vex Thor's body was discovered on the bridge of the Conqueror's Pride. Still sitting in his command chair, his 3 eyes open and staring at nothing. The Crithian Empire, far away in another part of the galaxy, received no word from their first fleet. They sent scouts to investigate. What the scouts found shocked them to their core, a debris field stretching across millions of miles, 500 Crithian warships destroyed, 20,000 warriors dead, and Earth, the primitive planet they had come to conquer, still intact and defended. The High Council convened an emergency session. Elder Carlin looked at the reports in disbelief. How is this possible? How could humans defeat our finest fleet? No one had an answer. The reports from the scouts were clear. The humans had used tactics the Crithians had never seen before. They had hidden weapons everywhere. They had fought with a coordination that seemed impossible, and they had refused to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. We must send a larger fleet, one council member insisted. We cannot let this insult stand. If other species learn that humans defeated us, they will lose their fear of the Empire. But before they could decide, they received a transmission from Earth. It was broadcast on all frequencies in all languages. The humans wanted everyone to hear their message. Major Kyle Bennett sat at a simple desk. Behind him, through a large window, Earth could be seen. The blue planet turned slowly, beautiful and peaceful. Kyle looked directly into the camera. He was wearing his military uniform. His face was calm, but his eyes were hard. My name is Major Kyle Bennett of the United Earth Defense Forces. I am speaking on behalf of all humanity. 3 months ago, the Crithian Empire sent a fleet to conquer our world. They came with 500 warships and 20,000 warriors. They demanded our surrender. They threatened to destroy our planet if we refused. Kyle paused, letting his words sink in. We refused. We fought, and we won. The Crithian First Fleet no longer exists. Every ship was destroyed. Every warrior who came to conquer us is dead. Not because we wanted to kill them. Not because we enjoyed the violence. But because they gave us no choice. They came to take our freedom. They came to enslave or destroy us. We could not allow that. He leaned forward slightly. Now I need to explain something to everyone listening. I need to explain what humanity is. We are not the strongest species in the galaxy. Our technology is not the most advanced. Our weapons are not the most powerful. But we have something that has kept us alive for millions of years. We have the will to survive. Kyle's voice grew stronger. Humanity evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Predators hunted us. Diseases plagued us. The weather tried to freeze us or burn us. Other humans competed with us for resources. We should have gone extinct 1,000 times. But we didn't. We adapted. We learned. We survived. He stood up and walked to the window, showing Earth behind him. We survived the ice ages. We survived plagues that killed half our population. We survived wars that spanned our entire world. We survived because we never gave up. When we were pushed to the edge of extinction, we fought harder. When we faced impossible odds, we found a way. When we had nothing left to lose, we became the most dangerous thing in existence. Kyle turned back to the camera. The Crithians came here thinking we were weak. They thought being primitive meant being easy to defeat. They made a critical mistake. They assumed that having better weapons meant automatic victory. They didn't understand that weapons don't win wars. Will wins wars. Determination wins wars. The refusal to quit even when everything seems lost wins wars. His voice became colder. We sent everything we had against the Crithian fleet. Every weapon. Every ship. Every brave person willing to fight. We used tactics they had never seen because we invented them on the spot. We adapted faster than they could respond because we had to. We sacrificed thousands of our people because protecting our home was worth any price. Kyle walked back to the desk and sat down. This is our message to the galaxy, to the Crithian Empire, and to every other species out there. We want peace. We want to learn from you and trade with you. We want to explore the stars together. We want to be friends and allies. We will approach every new species with open hands and open hearts. His expression hardened. But if you come to Earth with weapons, if you threaten our people, if you try to conquer us or enslave us or destroy us, you will learn what the Crithians learned. You will learn that humans don't fight fair. We fight to win. We don't follow your rules of war. We make our own rules. We will use every trick, every tactic, every weapon we can think of. We will turn our entire solar system into a trap. We will sacrifice ourselves gladly if it means stopping you. Kyle let that sink in for a moment. The Crithians sent their strongest to defeat us. No one returned. Not one ship. Not one warrior. Not one message back to their empire. They came to conquer and they found only death. Will you make the same mistake? He leaned back in his chair. Or will you come in peace? Will you approach us as equals? Will you give us the respect we have earned with our blood? The choice is yours. But choose carefully, because if you choose war, you will discover something that every predator on Earth eventually learned. Humans are not prey. We never were. We have always been the most dangerous hunters on our planet, and now we are bringing that instinct to the stars. Kyle's voice softened slightly. We hope you choose peace. We really do. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. There are wonders to discover and knowledge to share. We can all grow together. But if you choose war, remember this message. Remember the Crithian First Fleet. Remember that they were the strongest warriors in their empire and they came here to conquer a primitive world. And remember that not one of them went home. He stared into the camera for a long moment. Come in peace and we will welcome you. Come in war and we will end you. The choice has always been yours. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species that had heard of Earth's victory now understood what they were dealing with. The humans were not just lucky. They were not just clever. They were survivors. And survivors were the most dangerous thing in the universe because they refused to die. Some species decided to approach Earth peacefully. Some decided to avoid humans altogether. And some, like the Crithians, learned their lesson the hard way. The Crithian Empire never sent another fleet to Earth. They had learned that some prey fought back. And when humans fought back, nobody won. Everyone just died. On Earth, life slowly returned to normal. The dead were mourned. The damaged ships and stations were repaired. New defenses were built. And humanity prepared for whatever came next. Colonel Lisa Grant took command of the new defense fleet.